Hello, everyone joining us today on BrandsTalk, a show to help you develop and grow your brand in a more authentic and sustainable way locally and globally. Whether it is about your personal brand or company brand, your product or service level brand. My name is Brigitte Bukowski and everyone calls me Bridget. I'm the founder and owner of Bridget Brands, a branding strategy boutique. I help my clients craft meaningful strategies that effectively elevate their brands to unleash their full potential to shine. So let's get started and dive with me into the world of brands. I am really excited to have Marc Snyderman on my show today. He is a business attorney, a disruptive entrepreneur, and a #1 Amazon best-selling author. So Marc provides practical and strategic business and legal solutions to small and medium-sized businesses at below market rates. He invests, supports, and helps business grow and look for opportunities to disrupt and better marketplaces. I want to welcome Marc Snyderman. Welcome to BrandsTalk.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, thank you for being here today, Marc. I really appreciate your time. I know you are very busy. To start out with, could you tell us a little bit about your background, about your personal journey that brought you right there where you are right now?
Sure, glad to talk about it. I guess it all started when I decided to go to law school after college, and really thought that I would become like a corporate attorney and follow that path. Moved to New York, went into a law firm in Midtown Manhattan, and most of our clients were actually fashion clients. So we had a lot of the garment industry, so Jill Stewart, some of the big fashion names at the time were all of our clients. It was a lot of fun, but it was a real grind. And I realized, pretty quickly that the law firm life really wasn't what I wanted to be doing. And the problem was you're supporting just too many clients. And I had, there's like hundreds and hundreds of clients, and you can't really know enough about any particular client to really support them. So I said, I'd like to see the business side of it and try to go in house to a company where I'd only have one client and really kind of be able to delve into the company and really help them advance. So I got lucky and was able to join one of the cable companies when they were going public about 18 months out of law school. So it was a great opportunity. I joined this, billion-dollar company. Became a billion-dollar company overnight because they went public. And with that, I learned a whole lot about mergers and acquisitions, corporate and securities law, class action law. But what I did find was I kind of found myself and my best skills. And what I found was I was actually really good at taking technology and the high tech piece of it and translating it into English and making it usable and understandable. So they would send me down to the engineering department to actually translate whatever they were doing into our disclosure documents and the public facing documents that we would put out to say what the company was doing. Uh, the other thing I found out is I didn't want to be in a public company. I didn't want to be in a company that big. You kind of get lost, and you can't affect enough change. So I left there and I went to a privately held company that was an engineering and IT services company for the military. So mostly doing work for the U.S. Department of Defense, and so we were doing weapon system development and prototyping and really cool stuff. And again, I found myself in a high tech environment where I could translate and turn that high tech into understandable concepts for the public and sell what we were doing. And we were able to so I started there just basically as an attorney with the idea that I would build out sort of this compliance department and help them get, run their business in the right way. And within 5 years, they were like, hey, you're pretty integrated into the business. You should run the business. So I made the transition from being an attorney to being an operations person, and I became chief operating officer. And we were surrounded with the right people. We kind of saw the right opportunities, and the company grew like wildfire for 5 years. We went from 75 employees up to 300 employees in less than 5 years, which is a pretty extraordinary jump. I mean, we jumped up to $60 million in U.S. in turnover. Like it's a really solid, sizable company. And then I realized, we didn't have the infrastructure we needed to support what we had just built. So we spent the next few years sort of building out that infrastructure. And what it all taught me along the way was this is, you know, you learn more. I always say you learn more from where you made mistakes than you do from where you're successful.
Yeah.
Because I can always look at a mistake and you can find the root cause of what that was and where it went wrong. When you're successful and you do things right, it's 25 or 50 different things that you did to make you get to that point. It's the one, it's always and you can't figure out, well, what was it that drove that growth or drove us to there? And it was hard to find it. So the failures are easier to pinpoint. So I left. I grew that company. I kind of got to a point where it wasn't. We had a difference in opinion as to where we were going to go going forward between the owners and myself, and it was a mutual decision to say, you know what, I'm going to go do my own thing, and still support the company. So I still support that company to this day. I started my law firm 5 years ago, and I still support them as part of my client base. Uh,
That's wonderful. That's a great story. And you have mentioned, yeah, you started your own law firm around 5 years ago, right? So you were owner and president of Snyderman Law Group. But not only that, you're also involved in different kinds of other companies as a founder and CEO, let's say CEO of Apollo Line Group, and also the founder of the Virtual Cocktail Club, and so on. So I think you need to go deeper into that. But first, let's talk about the Snyderman Law Group. So, what is your main business actually? When it comes to Snyderman Group, what are you doing exactly, and why did you start it in the first place? So, what is your vision? And then yesterday, I think you posted. You were very busy on LinkedIn. You posted a really interesting post about the Big Why. Yeah, Simon Sinek's Big Why. I think that is also something that plays into that. So, what is your big why? So, why did you start the company? What is your vision with it? Yeah, and what's your purpose? What's the
right. So yeah, I mean, the law firm really became sort of, so I'll circle back to, when I first started out as a lawyer, I'm going to date myself, but it was, 1997, 98, when I was in a law firm in New York. And lawyers at that time, and I'll use a sports analogy because it's just people kind of get it. In baseball, you have what sometimes there's a utility infielder, which is somebody you can literally move around and have them play different positions for you based on whatever you need at the time. Lawyers were in the late '90s, and back in history from before the late '90s, utility infielders. You would call them in, you would bring them in, you could use them in a lot of different ways. So if Jill Stewart was one of our clients, she was a big fashion name back in the late '90s, early 2000s. When she was going to go get her new space in Soho, she called us. We would go down and help her negotiate the lease. We would actually be in the space with her, discussing what she was going to do, understanding it, and helping her in that way. Now, nobody would do that today. Like you would never see an attorney be brought in to go help their client look at a space because nobody wants to spend $600 or $700 an hour for that attorney to be doing that. It makes no sense. And all I kept saying, and so now attorneys have moved to a point where they're not infielders, they're not even in the outfield, they're not even in the game. They're just relief pitchers, or they're in the stands watching. And why did that change? So I tried to figure it out when I wanted to start the law firm and say, well, what changed in the practice that made it so that you know people aren't using attorneys in the same way? And really, what it is it's kind of it's a twofold piece. One is, the cost of it. the cost has gotten completely out of hand. Billable hours that are written at 6/10 of a, they write in, every 6 minutes they're billing something. So every email that they send, that they're going to put down 6 minutes of time at $700 an hour. It's still it's a $50 or a 75 or $100 email. And when you see that bill as a business owner, you say, I'm not calling that. I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it just takes the whole incentive to call your attorney out of it. So you go to Google, you find a way to answer a question, you just avoid. So attorneys become just firemen or firewomen. They're just putting out fires all the time. They're not being proactive. So the thought was, how do I change the model? How do you disrupt that? And the only way to disrupt it is to get rid of the cost, right? I don't need a
Yeah.
big, huge office. I don't need 50 people working for me. I'll use technology because attorneys are traditionally afraid of tech. They don't like it. They don't want to use Slack. They don't want to use messengers or you know project management systems, or they don't use any of this kind of tech. So I switch the model around and say I would do it that way. And the other thing you have to do is you have to get rid of the concept that kids can come out of law school making $200,000 a year when they don't know how to do anything. Like it's an unsustainable model. So you have to disrupt it from the bottom up. So the thought was, if we made it a subscription model, you could make it affordable for small and mid-sized businesses. So it's a monthly fee, right? So the
Yeah.
clients pay a true flat fee, and it doesn't matter if they call me 5,000 times in the month or 5 times in the month. They're paying the same amount, so they know what the amount is that month. And some months I get, some months it works really well for me, financially. Some months it doesn't. But as a whole, I'm providing the service that I want to provide to the people that I want to provide it to, which is the underserved community in the legal now because they can't afford it, is small and mid-sized businesses.
Yeah, so this is a very innovative approach and very much going with the zeitgeist. Yeah. So
hmm
you also state on your website, I think, what we are different is we hustle. So what do you mean by that exactly? What is your perspective on we are different, we hustle?
So, it's a funny, it's a good question. The difference is really that, you know, I go to my clients and I'll go wherever the work needs to be done. I don't require, so all law firms are traditionally these big monolith buildings, right, with giant offices and, big, huge conference rooms that overlook the city. So they want everybody to come see how great their office is. I took the opposite approach and say, why would I make the client come to me? I should go to the client, right? Why? I can do other things on my way there. I can take calls, and when I get there, I can be there doing the work that they need done and help them. And they don't need to pay for me to have a big office. They could care less. So I'm always, before COVID, I was out and about all day, every day, right?
Yeah.
All over the place. So my hustle now is a little different. My hustle is that I will work from 7 in the morning until 10 at night, and I do that pretty much every day.
Oh, wow. So you're helping your clients every day. What are their major pain points? So how do you support them grow? What are their gains? So what is the desires are you that you're satisfying? What is the transformation that you're helping them with?
It kind of depends on the client, right? I mean, everybody's in a different phase, and one of the things you find as because I have started my own businesses, I've run a decent sized business, and I've been in a business that was 500 million up to a billion. So I've pretty much seen from the inside every kind of range of business, and every business has inflection points along the way, and it is very different. A $0 to $1 million business is a completely different business than a 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, and that 10 to 50 is a totally different sector of your life. So really, it becomes identifying where are they at in their growth phase and helping them understand these are the things that are most important right now. So, for a one to, everybody wants to be, you want to know you have processes, you want to have, plans and process and all this stuff. And, and anybody that's been in a bigger business, you know that without process, you have nothing, right? But when you run a $0 to $1 million business, you don't need that much process. There's not enough people, and you're going to spend too much time worrying about making sure you have all these processes down when you should have just been selling. Right? When the number one thing you needed to do was just get customers. So it's really a matter of helping the company understand where they at in their growth phase, what phase are they at in their life, and helping them pinpoint where should they be focused at that time. And as the lawyer, plus strategist, right? The lawyer side of me is giving them, here's the risks that we're looking at right now. How do we mitigate those risks so that we can move the business forward? And the risks change as well as you get bigger. Your risks are totally different. The more people you have, that becomes your number one risk. Here in the United States, HR and HR law is probably one of your biggest risks that you have as a business. But when you're a startup and you only have 3 to 5 people, it's not, you don't have those issues. But when you get to 20 people and 50 people and 100 people, the issues start to pile up across, and then you're crossing state lines, and we have different state laws all across the United States. The United States is a really different. People think it's a very easy place to do business because we have a free market and all this great stuff, but it is a very complex place because it is so different state to state as to what you're doing and what kind of business you have. You do business in California, it's a completely different world than doing business on the East Coast, because California's regulations for their employment regulations are so heavily favored to the employee that it's a really tough place to do business. I'm sure you saw that Elon Musk moved the Tesla Gigafactory from California to Texas. Why did he move it? It wasn't because he doesn't want to be in California. It wasn't because he doesn't like it there. He moved it because of the employment laws.
Yeah.
It's not favorable for a business his size that's running, a lot of light industrial factories and industrial factory workers. He had to move, to get better law. That's what he did.
Okay. Wow, that's so interesting. I mean, we could go very deep into that, but I want to know
Yeah.
different sides of you, Mark, and I think also the audience. I want to circle back to you are also the founder of the Virtual Cocktail Club. So, is this the lawyer side of you, or what role are you playing in there exactly?
No, it's definitely not the lawyer, right? It's much more the entrepreneur that's sort of it was bottled up for many years. I started out when I started working when I was probably 8 years old for my dad. My father was a sort of a serial entrepreneur in the automotive industry. We had everything from auto parts stores to uh, used car dealerships, new car dealerships. We were doing everything. And I started working in his auto parts store when I was probably 8 years old. And I think by 14 or 15, I had my first business with my brother. We were detailing cars, we would, and we had a totally innovative approach to how we were gonna do the business. My father had a dealership, so we put flyers up all over the neighborhood, and we would pick people's cars up in the morning, drive them to the dealership, get them cleaned and detailed out, and then bring them back. So it was like a full service. But this is like in the 1980s, like late 80s, early 90s. Nobody's doing this kind of that kind of customized service for people. And I always look back, I said, wow, we should have kept that business. That was a really good business. But I have a desire always to look at, I call it white space. And what I mean by white space is, when you're looking at a whiteboard and you start to draw like competitors or who's doing what, there's all this space that just exists. And you say to yourself, well, shouldn't I be able to work in there? Why do I want to work in the same box as everybody else?
Yeah.
There's always a way to do something that's sort of in between it. And
Yeah.
it may not be the biggest idea. It may not be, so I have a piece of software that we just launched this past summer. and I call it white space. It's definitely white space software. It's a very small niche area of business process for a customer base that I know very well because it's the same industry that I came out of, right? And what did we do? We just kind of looked at the send where are they missing components that would help that business drive forward. So I just sort of pick off that component and say we'll just build that. It may grow. We have visions. We could grow it into the other pieces, but why start there? Why not start in an area where where people
Ex-
just aren't?
Exactly. It's kind of a blue ocean strategy or finding the
Exactly.
gap that you can fill and provide value for
Yeah.
everyone in these value chain activities, whether it's vertical, horizontal. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that's
exactly
great.
blue ocean, red ocean. Yep, you got it. So, it's just my own name for it.
Yeah, it's your name. Good. So,
So
let's.
virtual cocktail club. I guess I didn't answer your question.
Yeah, I mean, right,
Uh,
exactly.
yeah. So where does it come from? So it came from the concept that before COVID, I traveled a lot. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I was traveling, 25, 30 weeks a year, all over globally, mostly domestic, but some global travel.
Mhm.
And I love cocktails. I like, cool cocktails, stuff that people come up with neat and different cocktails with different concoctions and whatever they want to do. So I have a thing that every time we would go to a city, I'd find, a speakeasy or a number one or a highly rated cocktail bar, and I would go try something. And one of the things I missed was not just the cocktail, but the conversations at the cocktail bar. You meet interesting people when you're out and about on travel, and I like to talk to people and see what their story is and where are they going and what are they doing. And, you know, I missed it. So I said, well, how could we bring that experience to people again, where we could connect and have those kind of conversations. So we started what we called the virtual cocktail club. I know some really good mixologists, bartenders in the area. We talked about how could we put something together that we could send somebody a kit that had ingredients to make the cocktail, bring on a bartender to actually teach them about the cocktail and how does citrus interact with alcohol, what happens when you shake a drink versus stir a drink, the simple things that make mixing a drink really an art form and not just I threw together gin and tonic and I threw it in a glass and I served it to somebody. Understand, well, how do you make that gin and tonic a better drink? What happens when you put the lime in before you put the gin in? Why do you do certain things? And turn it into an experience where you're teaching somebody how to do something and you're creating the environment where they can speak to one another and yeah, it's not the same thing as sitting at a bar, but it's close. And we try to make that environment as close as we can to being at a cocktail bar and being able to talk to people and just have those kind of conversations. So that's really where it was born from, kind of just born out of I don't say born out of boredom, but born out of the idea that we wanted to create that experience all over again.
I mean, you are definitely an out of box thinker and a very creative person, and you see in everything that is out there not a problem, but really an opportunity to create something new. I really, really like that.
Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah. And you also took another opportunity. You have also become an author, a best-selling author
Yeah,
of the book Reading Through the Pandemic, Unconventional Wisdom from the Heartfelt Leaders. So you were co-authoring with several others who
yeah,
have stepped up to share the lows and the highs of the 2020 and what it means for all of us as leaders in the 21st century, right? And Kaylee O'Keefe, our publisher, yeah, because
yeah,
my book was kind of the following book of that significant women leaders reveal what matters most. So Kaylee O'Keefe said, Marc, who focused on paying it forward while he thought new ways to thrive as an entrepreneur. Can you elaborate on that a bit and tell us, why you started this book, why you participated in this co-creation that became a number one bestseller?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it when Kaylee reached out in the beginning, uh, my first reaction was I'm not I've been thinking about authoring a book and doing something for years, but just haven't really I have a lot of stuff going on, and I just keep saying I'm not going to focus on that right now. I have plenty of time to do that later on, and I just take a lot of notes and journal a lot so that I have I have things down that I know that I'll need later on. And when she said that, she was telling me about what she was doing, and bringing together, lots of different kind of people to put together a book that made, that tried to talk about what is the experience been like through COVID for people, running businesses, supporting businesses. And then she said, that we were going to pick a charity to support, and the proceeds were going to go to a charity. It became sort of a no-brainer for me. I thought, I mean, you know Kaylee. I mean, she's just an amazing person, and her energy is boundless. I mean, just wicked intelligent, and her vision was just one that I couldn't say no to, to be
Yes,
honest.
you can't.
You just can't say no to. She's really difficult to say no to.
Yeah.
So I kind of jumped in, and it was a great experience. Obviously, it's amazing to be able to say we're number one bestsellers. Congratulations. But it's more the experience of it, and being able to tell a story in the chapter that you hope resonates with people, and they understand sort of how did you connect that there was more than just the story of you know the story of Mark, whatever, what did I do during this time. It was more connecting on an emotional and a deeper level, and trying to show more of what was my experience. And one of the things that I've been pretty vocal about it. I wasn't vocal about it for many years, but I've been more vocal about it in the past 2 years. And part of quote unquote paying it forward is actually sort of destigmatizing the mental illness and depression, and how do you deal with those kind of things. And I think more people have experienced you know what is akin to depression, and maybe it's not a full on depression from COVID and this last, and isolation and everything that's gone on for the past 24 months than ever before. And you're hoping that people are really starting to understand, and gain empathy towards things that they've been unempathetic to, and not understanding. And I tell people, like, I've been through depression. It's a very difficult thing to understand when you haven't done it. And before I had my own, I didn't understand it, and I would never claim to understand anyone else's journey, because everyone's journey is different, and their ability to process it and what it does to them and how they get through it. But we all need to be here for each other to help people get through these difficult times. I mean, it's I saw somebody talk about it once about because everybody keeps using it's unprecedented times, right? And then somebody said, well, isn't every single part of life an unprecedented time? So we probably shouldn't be saying it's unprecedented, right? It was unprecedented 100 years ago. It's unprecedented now. Everything has changed so much in the past. Well, I mean, it changes always, but this last few years has just been just rapid fire change.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of good things to think about out of it, right? It's not all bad. The advancement of the force of companies to understand that telecommuting and this kind of and work anywhere lifestyles are okay is I think that's a very good thing, right? To understand that talent can live wherever talent wants to live, and you can grab that talent where it is and not worry about it. And I've been saying it for a long time. It was very difficult because I was in a corporate structure that had a lot of on-site people, and I kept saying, if we could have we don't need people to be here. They don't need to be in this office,
Yeah.
and we can free up their life and make them happier and support their lifestyles. It's no longer like I grew up in my mom didn't work when I was little. She gave up her job. She was a teacher. She gave up her job to stay at home with us, And that's that's become super rare these days to be able to do that. To be able to have single income family, it's almost necessity for most families to be dual income. So it's changed the whole world, right? You
Yeah.
have to look at like the global perspectives of, and the United States is so much different than the rest of the world in the way we work, and not in a good way, and not in a good way. I spent, we had a my old company. We had a subsidiary in Hungary for, we ran business there for almost 10 years. So I was back and forth to Budapest many times. Spent, you know, if you add it all up, I mean, a couple months there probably over the 10 years. Traveled Eastern Europe, extensively, doing business there. It's a different world, and business is done differently. People think differently, and I always say like you get an MBA. An MBA at school doesn't mean anything. An MBA is going international travel and doing business in another country. That's where you really start to learn things.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you learn things, and you also appreciate maybe more or less, I mean, appreciate other ways of doing things, but you also
Yeah,
become aware of the way of how you do things and where you might need to improve. Yeah. When you look at it from your own perspective, when you look at your own value systems that are predating in your own culture. So you see, so the more you go away from your own thing and dive into different other cultures and mentalities, the more obvious becomes the way of how you do things. This is really interesting.
absolutely,
There's a
absolutely.
paradox
It is.
with it.
It helps that self awareness and that self reflection in a big way.
Exactly. And also writing a book chapter. I love your chapter. It's so open. It shows a way of vulnerability and this openness, and you really connect on a deeper level with your audience. I will put it in the show notes so people have access, can get access to the book. And that brings me also to the next question, connecting on a visceral level. So you are not only the president of Snyderman Group, and you're also in C-level positions of other companies, and thereby with writing this book and so on, you became a thought leader, yeah, in your field, in your industries, and also beyond. So in that sense, you became a strong authority and also a personal brand, a strong personal brand, because you're giving back. You have a perception in the market of yeah, solving problems and getting people to where they desire to be. And now I have the question to you: what is it or makes an authentic brand, an authentic personal brand, in your opinion?
I mean, I think and that's a great question. And what makes it authentic is it has to really be you, right? You can't, you know, uh, and I would say, it took me a while to learn that, right? Us, because you try to build this social media presence and you're building your brand, and because I had helped build the brand of my company, and then I had started this law firm, and I'm like, well, what do I want it to be? What should it look like? And and I was watching a lot of Gary Vee, and you're reading Simon Sinek, you're reading, you start reading everybody, right? And you try to figure out, well, how do I position myself? And there's so many unauthentic brands, and social media drives so much of it, right? Because we're always trying to make this phenomenal life of an entrepreneur, and everything's so great. And those of us that are entrepreneurs know that it's not always that great, right? There
No,
is,
it's a
you know, it's a grind, right? And there,
a grind and a roller coaster ride.
yeah, and a roller coaster ride, exactly. Like when I'm still working on on a Saturday, and I'm working all day, and I'm saying to myself, where's an end? And I don't see an end. It
Oh,
gets tough, right? It
I
gets
think
tough.
there's never an end. Yeah, you
No,
have to set the boundaries basically.
yeah,
Yeah, to make
yeah,
yourself feel good and give yourself also some downtime, some time to
yeah. You
for
do,
self care, right? Mm.
right? So what I found was you have to find your voice, and what are you willing to put out, and how far are you willing to push. And until you're willing to be vulnerable, and actually show that it's not all glitz and glamour, and it's not all phenomenal, and it is tough, and it is work, and and showing people what you really are and who you really want to be. You're never going to be authentic. Nobody's going to see it as authentic. People can see through it. It's not that hard, right? I mean, you could you can name a bunch of brands. I won't name them, but that they're doing it for the wrong reason. Their why isn't real, and they're not actually doing what they're not doing what they say they do. I like to believe I do believe that I am putting I am doing what I say I will do, and I'm supporting people the way I say I will. And like, so I would use like during COVID there was a big program here in the United States for to try to help people get they were getting money from the government to support their businesses. These forms were impossible for people to understand how to do them. Like, they were really difficult. They made it super hard, and people are freaked out and they're panicked because they can't make payroll. And they hear there's this opportunity to get money from the government to help pay payroll. So I basically just would help people. I didn't charge anybody for that service, right? I helped more businesses than I care to say that
Yeah.
I just got on the phone with and would walk them through the form and help them figure out how to fill it out, how to get this money, what do you do when you get the money, and make sure you account for it properly. And but that's when I say I paid it forward, that's paying it forward, right? Do I anticipate? Do I even care if none of them ever come back to me? That's okay,
Yeah.
right? I'm totally okay with the concept because I'm helping the small business that I wanted to help when I started this. So, and all the other businesses that I start up, I mean, they're interesting to they're very random, right? In term, you might look at it and say that's a very random set of concepts that you have, but to me, it's all tied together in just finding ways to make things better,
Yeah.
and and do and have fun at the same time. I mean, you can't if you're not enjoying it, don't do it. That's a rule. Like,
And
that's a hard rule.
exactly, it's about staying true to yourself and what your values are, and you obviously do that because I follow you on LinkedIn and whatever you post and share. It's I see that really comes from your heart. It comes from you, so you are perceived as being your true you. Yeah, so you do an exceptional job on your branding, from my perspective, and
No, I appreciate that. I mean, it's a lot of work.
yeah, I mean, it is a lot of work, but it's also fun and it's also something that you're proud of. It's you. You are communicating who you are through what you're doing and also what you're doing with your company. And that's my next question. You have named your company after your own name, Snyderman. So, is there a story behind? Is there intention why you named it after your own name?
Well, there's I would say it's twofold. One is it's a I actually probably wouldn't have if my firm wasn't located in New Jersey. I probably wouldn't be named. I probably wouldn't have used my last name,
Oh.
uh, because in New Jersey it's a requirement that a law firm has to have your names in it.
Okay, got it.
Like the lead the partners, they have to use names. Like, you can't call it like uh, the growth firm or something along those lines, which is probably what I would have done. But in hindsight, I'm actually happy that it isn't. First of all, it builds my own. It's a way to help build my personal, brand awareness and my name. But my name is important because it's a good story. When my great grandparents came from one of some of them from Austria, from Lithuania, from Latvia, and when they immigrated to the United States, my great grandfather was coming through Ellis Island, and they asked, and his name was not Snyderman, right? That was not our name. That's not a real name. It doesn't exist. Our name, we don't actually know what our real name was. We've heard it was Rabinovich. It's like a Russian, like a
Yeah.
Lithuanian name. And they asked him what did he do for a living, and he said he was a Snyder. And a Snyder is in Yiddish, it's a tailor.
Yes.
So they said your name is Snyderman, and they pushed him through. and so that became our name. And I like there's something to be able to bring the name forward and use it as part of the brand that is important to me from that perspective.
Yeah. What an impressive story. Schneider is also in German, the word for tailor.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
hey, wow, that's really interesting. Thanks for sharing that story with us. And then I
Yeah.
want to circle back once more to the very beginning. We talked about failures and how much they help us leap forward and grow. Is there anything in your life on your journey that was particularly, let's say, particularly or a significant event that you had that was a detour or a roadblock on the way, and that you think, I'm glad it happened in hindsight because it helped me to grow from it. Would you like to share any of these roadblocks or detours with us?
Sure. I mean, I guess there's been a couple in my career that sort of set me on the path, right? The first major one was why I left the cable company to begin with. I had grown to a point where I was kind of supporting the general counsel directly. I had a lot of work under me, and I went to them and said, well, I'm not being paid commensurate with where I'm supposed to be. I don't have the title I should have. And the CFO of the company had made a determination that she only wanted a general counsel, and then nobody else could be called counsel. And everybody else was just sort of just an underling. And I said, well, I can't do this. I'm not going to continue to do this amount of work for this company. And the general counsel turned to me, and I'm still friends with him to this day, and he said, I can't do anything about it. You need to move on. And it was like my first instinct was, well, you need me. We've talked about how much I'm doing and how great I'm doing, and you're not going to stand, and you can't stand up and make this and fix this. You know, where's the value? How does nobody see the value? And it kind of deflates you a lot, right? So it was, how do I turn this into something else, and how do I move on? And so you have to learn from those sort of points in your life where somebody kicks you and you get knocked down, and you got to get back up and do it all over again, and find that okay, well, they didn't see my value here. That's okay. I know what I did. I look back and know that I spent the better part of 5 years helping that place grow and do all the great things that it was doing at the time, and then I knew that I was doing my part. And you kind of whether somebody values it or not, you need to know that your value is you, and you put in your effort. And as I always say, like, as long as you put in the effort and the time, and you feel good about what you did, it's all that really matters.
Yeah, and speaking of effort and time, what is really time consuming is also branding. And since you're doing that very well, I would like to know from your perspective or in your opinion, can you give us, the audience, some advice about building a brand, building your own company, building your own personal brand? Are there any key branding essentials that you would say that have to be really, really considered and taken seriously when we start out with our own businesses?
I mean, I think for me, it's been really sort of crafting the message, and keeping tight to it. That it's not like you know obviously I'm doing a range of activities, so it's hard for me to make sure that I'm staying sort of quote unquote on brand, right? That it's like it's within some channel that makes sense to everybody, where you don't say, what is he talking about and why is he talking about that, because it's not even what he does. uh, I would say finding your niche is really good. uh, you know uh, and pay attention to people do pay attention to the little things, like your colors, your logos, you
Yeah.
know that things, it really does make a difference, right? It really creates that environment. I mean, one of the things when I started the law firm was I wanted it to not look like a law firm, right? So it purposefully doesn't look like a law firm.
Yeah.
While it has a law name, Snyderman Law Group, because I had to name it, I had this requirement. You know, I use a growth logo. I use orange, and that was all purposeful, right? Because I looked around and there was no law firms that are orange. Law firms are gray and black and blue, right? And they promote this sense of professionalism, and orange is not considered like a super professional color. It's a happy, energetic color,
Yeah.
right? So that's why I chose it. So I would say look for what makes you, what do you want to be different, and how do you want to stand out in a crowd, because there's so much out there,
Yeah.
right? And then just finding your sound and what works for you. I didn't think video was going to be something that I really wanted to do, uh, but I actually really like it. And I tied in with a great group that helps me immensely. I mean, I think you've met the Millennials crew out in California, my buddy
Yeah.
Robert, and
Yeah.
I mean they're phenomenal at what they do, and helping me put together this they helped me build this brand, and be able to start to become a thought leader. I don't say I am a thought leader yet. I say I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done to get there. But actually being able to say what I want to say, and I think that's part of brands. Building that brand, and everybody does it in their needs to do it in their own way, right? Not everybody should be putting out, you know, I mean, I'm putting out a lot of content right now, and I think that that to me is important because it is part of what I want to do, which is help people. So and law firms traditionally will not put out content like this because there is a risk, right? That I'm giving, you
Always.
know, that okay, well, you're saying things and somebody's just going to take it and run with it, and I'm going to get, somebody's going to say, well, you told me on this video, that I should do it this way. No, I made a statement of this is how it normally is done, but I do run a risk, so that's why you see law firms won't do it. Like they won't put that kind of content out. But
Yeah.
we're not going to break the mold if somebody doesn't want to take the chance.
Exactly. Yeah. And I like the way of how you speak about your logo and your branding because it's the tangible part of you. You speak through your colors. It's you. You
Hmm.
staying true to who you are and what you want to be and what the perception is you want to have in the marketplace. And that is important because you are not hiding behind something else that is not directly connected to you. And through that, when you are really, um, yeah, taking a stance in the society, a stance towards the world that is you, there is nothing wrong. And people who would not like it anyway otherwise. Yeah. So you cannot serve everyone in this world. Yeah? You have certain people that are going to follow you because you speak to them, you speak to their hearts, to their minds with your services that you're offering. And I think that makes a strong personal brand because you're doing something good. Yeah, you're doing something, you give back something to the society, to the people here in this world that connect with you on this visceral level. Yeah. And the logos and all the brand elements, yeah, your law firm is orange. That's okay. Yeah, because it's you. It expresses what you are. Yeah. And by the way, we have that in common. I also have orange in my logo.
We do, yeah, which I like.
Yeah.
It's
So
funny, like after I don't say that I'm all of a sudden there was a big movement towards orange in the past few years that you hadn't seen a lot of orange being used,
yeah,
and I think your brand was probably around the same time as my brand, and we had this like, and then all of a sudden you start saying, like, what, really, are they taking my color?
connecting brands, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Colors are connecting.
yeah.
Also, yeah, good. So before we come to the end of our show, Mark, I would really like to do a very quick word wrap with you. Are you ready to give me quick and short answers?
I'm not usually quick and short, but I'll try.
Okay, right. The first one, pandemic.
just a long, drawn out time to be over.
Okay. Leadership.
Finding your why and bringing people along with you.
Good. Disruptive.
Finding the white space.
Ah, yeah. And the law.
Boring.
Comes from an attorney, right?
Yeah.
And last but not least, brains.
Authenticity and showing who you really are.
Good. Thank you. So, Mark, for listeners who would like to connect with you, where would they find you?
I'm pretty easy to find. I just use Marc Snyderman, MarcsNyderman, for LinkedIn, for for Twitter, for Instagram. There's www.marksnyderman.com is sort of my central brand, and then the law firm is SnydermanLawGroup.com. And from the Marc Snyderman, you can find pretty much all my other businesses.
Okay, good. So, Mark, thank you so much for being my guest today on BrandsTalk. It really was a pleasure having you here, sharing what an unconventional law firm stands for and how it operates, and all your wisdom on branding. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. So, thanks to everyone out there for joining BrandsTalk today. I'm always welcoming your precious feedback. Please give it some social love, leave your comment, or drop me an email. You can also listen to the show as a podcast on your go. Just follow BrandsTalk on your favorite platform. If you're interested in learning more about my services, head over to my website, bridgetbrands.com. Or if you're curious about my personal branding course I'm about to launch in January, see the link to further information in the comments. I hope you will join me again where we dive into the world of brands live or by having me in your earbuds walking the talk. Let's shine you the service. See you then.